Welcome back to the ModernPreneur Podcast, where listeners come to learn, grow, and succeed. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that everybody can benefit from: how to overcome self-doubt and limiting beliefs.
Some of the stuff may be hard to hear, but it definitely can put a little fire under your ass to
Help you level up.
Yep. It's all about the level up. It's all about growing. It's all about learning new things, trying new things, and helping yourself in any way that you can.
And the number one thing that people aren't going to like to hear, it's you can't blame others.
Yes, you cannot blame other people for your own limiting beliefs, your own self-doubt. And that is something that's kind of hard to hear, but it is so true because we all go through shit. We all have had like things happen in our lives that have triggered us or made us feel not worthy or made us feel not loved. And there's a lot of different avenues that people can take with their own, like you could self-medicate, you could turn to alcohol, you could turn to drugs. There's a lot of things, and this is why this is such a touchy topic, is because you can take those things that you've been through and you can learn from them and you can utilize them as your power to succeed. And it's not an easy process. You know what I mean? It's definitely something that is a struggle, and it's something that a lot of people struggle with. And not everybody just talks about like shit that they've been through or maybe their childhood.
The hard times, the not so pretty things, right? It's always like what your Instagram looks like, right?
Right.
But so you want to portray all the good things and the things that make you feel good, but
there's a lot that you can learn from doing the work within yourself and really looking at yourself from a very true, authentic way, and knowing that just because you've been through some hard times doesn't mean that the hard times have to continue. And that's why it is so important to not blame other people for the way that you're feeling. And I think that's one of the biggest steps in growing is looking inward and being like, okay, and you can acknowledge your feelings. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to have anxiety. It's okay to go into depression. Like, been there. Like, you can really, it's okay. But taking those feelings and that emotion and then filling them with other things, which we'll talk about in a little bit, can help you limit the negative talk, and it can help you become more positive and more optimistic about the future, and being super strict and on that tunnel vision and knowing where you want to be and taking those steps, which is just everything we've talked about in all of the episodes so far, but doing what you need to do in order to get to where you want to be. And this is why this topic is so important. So the goal with this conversation is to help you work through these traumas in a way that can help you focus on where you want to be and help you grow in areas that maybe you haven't thought about, or maybe you kind of push these feelings to like you internalize them and you don't talk about them. So this gives you an opportunity to kind of reflect and then digest and then move the heck on.
Right. So I think it's important, no matter if you're on your business journey or in your personal life, that you let go of things that are no longer serving you and taking up space in your mental capacity to make room for other things, because it can really, like, you get bogged down and you get gunked up almost over these things that you're not obsessing over, but it takes up real estate in your own mind. And by letting go of these things, and it's easier said than done because this is an everyday thing, but by letting go of these things, you're allowing yourself to make room for new things in your life.
Absolutely. And that no stress express, that is what and again, we are not preaching
something to
this
aim
by
for.
any means. This is something to aim for.
Right.
Because we do stress ourselves out. I mean, we are living in a very
stress balls.
We created this high-paced life for ourselves. We're doing a lot. We have a lot on our plates. Like, we are putting ourselves out there in a way, but it's also like knowing when to take a second for yourself and allowing you to like have that mental just like USA for a second. Like,
are you talking about work-life balance? That one, that like thing that's like way over there
that we're trying to learn. Like, it's like, I don't know about this. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely it's so important, and that we're not going to sit here and say that we're not stressed by any means. Like, stress comes in all different shapes and sizes. It can come from any facet of life. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. There's so many things that are out of your control, and stress is just a factor that comes into play, and it's there.
And how do you manage that, and how do you be able to manage it in a way that it doesn't overtake your life?
Yes, and because it can make you sick, which we both have honestly gotten sick because we've been stressed. Like you went to the hospital. Like there's and I mean it can cause headaches. It can cause cancer. Stress alone can cause cancer. I don't know if you know that, but it's true. Stress can cause so many different things in your life.
It manifests itself differently in everybody's body too. Everybody's different on how stress comes through.
And that's why it's so important to go through like the healing journey and acknowledging like past traumas and things that have happened, because you internalize it. And there's probably like a lot of us are walking around and we haven't addressed stress that's happened to us as like in our like adolescence or like being a child and having certain things happen, whatever it may be for you, but going through that process of like healing and letting go, because again, we have stress on the day to day. So if you are internalizing stress since you were a kid and you're still trying to live your day to day, like it's hard. You know what I mean? It's hard to push through. It's hard to be positive. It's hard to fill your mind with positive things. And I truly believe that's where like a lot of like anxiety and depression comes from, is the fact that we just like internalize these things and we don't talk about them. And this is why, again, you just joked and said this is a dark topic today, but it's like yes, it is.
It is though. It's not always rainbows and sunshine. It's like
no, and we're here to help. We're here to talk about like real shit and like stuff that we do struggle with too. And again, we're not going to sit here and say that we're perfect, because we do stress. It's definitely a thing, but it's also learning how to like cope and to like lean on people and to fill your mind with other things. It can really help. And if you, I mean, it's just the way that it is. Like, unfortunately, the world that we live in is not that bright all the time, which is fine. But just knowing how to handle some of these things, which we'll get into in a few minutes too.
I think it definitely comes down to like how the product of how you're raised in that environment and how you learned how to handle different situations and stressful moments. I think definitely like, because we both come from divorced parents, so I think with my dad, he's more like I don't know if stoic's the right word. Is that the right word? It's just very like and put together, but he's also very, whereas my mom has been completely emotional and very reaction and it's very like and where it's like he has always told me, and it's always just to my detriment as like I grow up. I think there's definitely times where it's like you have to have more emotion to things. You can't just be so like, passive, so cut off and like this is the way it is. But my dad would always say, you know, you can have a couple of minutes to be upset and you can have your feelings. But life's gonna go on, and it doesn't matter. And it can be as harsh as it may come off, as if somebody might die. Something's gonna happen. All these different things. The world's still going to move and like your bills are still going to need to be paid. And this was ever since I was like a young kid, and it wasn't ever coming from like a non-loving place. It was always very, I guess when I said I'm more of a realist, I guess that's where it comes from. It's just like, it's very realistic. It's like, it's okay to have your feelings in the way that you're feeling, but you have to understand that tomorrow the sun's going to come up. It might not, but the world's going to keep moving, and you're going to have to learn how to handle yourself. Absolutely. And you're either going to completely throw your life away and it's going to destroy you and ruin every single day, or you're going to figure out how to change it.
I mean, I would almost wish that one of my parents would have mentioned that.
Where it's on the opposite end, where my mom is so reactionary that it's the opposite, and I feel that in myself is like I react, and it's hard to
break the patterns, but it's also like what you're conditioned to. And I think that like your dad has a great point, and I think that's a great mindset, but it also is something that does strike a little bit of like fear almost, or like
it's like you're not just open
the smallest
to it's almost like you don't allow yourself to feel the emotion, like almost.
But also thinking about like his generation, that's kind of the way that they all were. Like this, like mental health and like being open about like these things it was not popular back when he was young.
No, it's not like I talk about my feelings and we're gonna be all emotional kind of a situation.
And then like going from like your grandpa to your dad, like there's like a big shift there where your grandpa was probably worse. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And then like it's just like the different generations that we live in, and like we live in now such a like an open mental health awareness culture. So for us, it's a little bit easier, but still, it does stem from like your childhood or things that you've like been through, and then comparing like your parents and having divorced parents, I think is such a great point, because I don't know what the percentage is. I'm not going to pretend like I know, but a good percentage of children have divorced parents, and by this is not giving anybody like a negative vibe or like trying to talk crap about anybody who's divorced, but there's something that happens, I think, when your parents do get divorced. My parents were divorced before I was even like born, or before I was like even one or whatever. So like I don't remember that, or I didn't have to like go through that. That's just the way my life was.
It's always been, yeah.
But I do know like my brother, for instance, like that's something that like he struggled with pretty hard when like my stepdad and mom split, and like then there was 3 of us, and I think that there's a lot of emotion that goes into it. And again, you have to keep living the day to day. And I think that's why it's so important to talk about these things, because in order to reflect and to look back, you have to talk about them, and you have to at least acknowledge your feelings, allow you to like feel these things, but then also knowing, one, it's normal. Like it's okay to feel that. Like you don't need to put yourself down, or you don't need to have that negative self-talk that I think comes with a lot of these things, because it doesn't matter if it was a divorce or you were picked on as a child or like something super traumatic happened in your life. You can replay those things in your head over and over and over again. But allowing yourself to heal from those moments, there's so much more brighterness on the other side of that, and other than just like stewing on the negative, which is why I think people do struggle so hard. And again, you can use this stuff as fuel and heal yourself, or it can really put you in a very dark place. And I think too, probably where some of our entrepreneurial spirit comes from is like, we've always felt, I mean, personally, I've always felt like I need to prove myself. Like I need to be the best that I can be, and I need to show people like what I'm capable of. And it almost comes from like, it's very positive, but I think that's where the competition thing in me like kicks in, is because this does, it almost is like a negative thing, or something that I should work through even more, because I don't feel like that as much as I used to. But in my early 20s, like I'm going to prove everybody wrong, or I'm going to prove everybody, or everybody who's ever thought bad of me, like I'm going to do something so great that like I'm going to just prove them wrong. And it does stem from like kind of a negative place, you know what I mean? And then to that point too, like,
and then almost just thinking like, do you think that that's proving it to yourself more than it's proving it to them?
Probably. And I know
like you have to do this to that inner child, or that younger self, or that younger you. It's like, I have to do this.
I think so. I
have to be the best at this. It's almost like you're not doing it for them. I feel like listening to it, it's like you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah,
you're pushing yourself, which I relate to, because it's like being your own worst critic, right? And being your not number one fan all the time.
No, and I think that it, again, being so hard on yourself, which is like something that as a teenager, I think we can also condition ourselves to. Like I struggled with horrible acne, and it's like I was so embarrassed just to be at school because of my face, and like I used to get so self-conscious about people looking me in the face, like that. There's that stem to it, and then there's also like, moving to a new school. Like there's a lot of different things that you start this negative self-talk, and then like you don't really realize it, but then as you grow older, you still have these negative thoughts come in your head, and then
patterns, these patterns that you still follow,
or you feel like, no, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe, but then like on the flip side, like I was more so like I didn't like, you don't feel good enough, but my narrative as a young adult in my like 18 to 20, like I was like, I don't give a fuck. Like I don't give like about anything. Like that was like my way of like handling my negative self-talk. And it was kind of healthy for me at the point, because it let me let go of a lot of stuff. But also looking back, it's like, no, that was just me being in denial about my own feelings. And there's just been so many different things, like moving to a big school after being in a little tiny school that had a class of 24 people, to then going to Petoskey Middle School with all of the schools put together. That was like a good, I would say, make it or break it moment for me, because that I never was negative about myself until I went into this school. And then that like had the whole like wanting to be popular and wanting to be like cool and wanting people to like me. And I've never like had to go through that process of like wishing that people liked me. You know what I mean? And that's just such a weird.
It does hit. It hits like 6th grade. I remember, it's weird. Like, I was thinking about that, like that first like day when you're like walking up. Do you remember the middle school where it's like?
I remember.
But it's the 6th grade hall. It's like where the bus loop starts. Like right over there, and just like watching all these friend groups that are forming, and it's because they went to soccer together.
Yeah,
they went to this, and you're just like, what?
Or because all the schools come together, so there's like 5 elementaries, and they all come together, and then like that was just the hardest thing too, is because you get put in these classrooms and everybody already has their own little cliques because they all went to school with each other since like kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And then you're like the outsider. And then you like try, it's just, and I wasn't, and it just kind of like digs away at your self-confidence. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then there's that negative self-talk that comes in where it's like, am I good enough? Like, I want, like, do they like me? And then you try even harder to have somebody like you. And then you probably make yourself look like a dodo bird because you're trying to make somebody like you. And it's this whole, like, weird negative self-talk. And I think a lot of, again, like, some of our adult, like, trauma or adult stressors or the way that we act or the way that we talk to ourselves stems from things like this. And we don't realize how much it impacts us until you, like, go back and, like, think about this junk. And then you're like, oh, well, maybe that's why I did that. Or maybe that's why I did that. And I think it's just so important to, like, sit back and reflect on that because negative self-talk is so real, which we talked a lot about in the last episode. If you did not watch our episode on like affirmations and manifesting your dreams, this is why that stuff is so important to us because we have been there. We have been through that. And again, it doesn't matter if it's divorced parents, like even having your parents be divorced at like as like a 7 to 14-year-old can be so traumatic that you might even feel like you're not enough for your own parents, or you might feel like you did something wrong, or you might blame yourself for something, or there's all these different narratives that happen. And I think that people don't allow themselves to go through that healing process to think about it and then like reflect on it and then give themselves the praise of like, it's not my fault and like, it's okay to feel these things. And then fill your mind with like better shit and then like be positive. You know what I mean? It's just so important. Those scenarios and those moments and those younger moments of like negative self-talk and not feeling good enough in whatever facet of your life can lead to depression, anxiety, or internal stressors that happen in your young adult life. And you don't necessarily realize like what's happening until it's kind of too late and you are depressed and you're not quite sure what's going on. I
think too, if you don't learn how at any age how to handle that stuff, you can't recognize it. And if you don't understand what's happening or why you're feeling the way you're feeling and then how to work through that, then you're kind of just navigating through life, always kind of floundering.
Yeah. And I think that's why, like, for us personally, being entrepreneurs and listening to some of like Mel Robbins, Tony Robbins, all of the different influencers, Jay Shetty, like all of the big podcasters and people that help us fill our minds with positive stuff, like they talk about these healing processes and they talk about these things. So like if it wasn't maybe for like our entrepreneurial spirit or like us wanting to grow in other ways, it kind of opened the door for us to think about these things in general. So like if you're not necessarily on like a growth journey right now, you might not be exposed to things that are going to help you like go through those.
It ties back to like letting go of certain things in your life. And it's easier said than done, but it's working on truly letting things go to make room to be able to see those things and to be able to have a different opinion and have a different mindset because you're not so cluttered by all these stressors and these problems and things that are giving you anxiety.
And the negative self-talk, I think, is just one of like the biggest things too. Like you don't even realize when it's happening. You know what I mean? Or like you could be so hard on yourself. So like you said, you're like your own worst critic. But like being able to take that and then listen to something that's positive, and it's not always easy to actually put on a podcast and like fully listen to it, especially if it's titled something like changing your way of thinking or what, you know what I mean? Like it's like sometimes you have to force it and then you open your mind to actually like listening to it. Because again, if you are anxious or you do have depression or you're stressed out, sometimes we feed off of our own energy. But if you're not looking for an outlet, then that's not really going to be open to your own, I don't know, you're not going to be open to it.
It's not just going to come. You need to be able to you need to open a door. You need to have a mindset shift. You need to have something that happens that allows these things to start flowing into your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think again, being an entrepreneur has helped us look at people that maybe we wouldn't have had the opportunity to
Right.
like look at otherwise. And that's why we really wanted to talk about this today, because there are resources out there that can help you get rid of the negativeness, fill your mind with more positiveness. And that's why for us, like doing our like manifesting journals and doing like the daily affirmations and all of those different things, it's all part of the growth process and the growth journey of being who you want to be.
Right.
But like your mind is all, like the biggest thing. Like, yes, you can be successful. You can have everything in life that you want. But if you don't do the mental work, when you get that, you're not going to be as happy as you think. And I think like that's one of the biggest things is like there's so many people that are successful or have millions and millions of dollars, but they're still unhappy because they haven't gone through that healing process.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like, that just like, that always sits in the back of my head. That's like, well, you need to take care of your mental just as much as you need to take care of everything else in your life.
And I think it's about how you decide, like that made me think about like how you decide what success is to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not always $1 million or a Ferrari or, you know what I mean? Like it's not always what people think it is. And sometimes it's just as simple as being, I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's being successful.
And that's great. And
I think people forget that. And it's like realizing if you are truly happy, if you're doing the things in your life that are bringing you joy, you're ultimately more successful than someone who is miserable and crying in their mansion.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think too, it's again, it's doing the work and like again, knowing what, like you just said, success is to you, because it doesn't have to even involve like you don't have to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to be like, this could be really for anybody out there. Where like, what does success mean to you and what would make you happy? And I think like when we started our entrepreneurial journey, we just wanted to be able to quit our 9-to-5 jobs and like take care of ourselves.
Right.
That was like the biggest goal.
Do our own thing.
Right. And just be our own bosses. Like we didn't like being told what to do. We wanted to pave our own way. And like that was our first like goals. You know what I mean? And then as you grow, you also like grow with your goals too.
Yeah, your goals change definitely as you're growing and you evolve in the direction that you want to go in.
Yeah. And I think that it's just like good to recognize that, because sometimes what you want right now might not be what you want in the future. And it's like, okay, well, as you grow, like your wishes and your wants for your own self can grow too.
And one of the great ways that we talked about to do all of this and to negate that negative self-talk is through your manifesting and through these positive affirmations that you write down or you keep on a note or you keep anywhere to remind yourself for something that you can see every day to kind of shift that mindset and to really get you into the mentality that you are worthy, you are loved, you are successful, I can do this.
Yes.
And you can kind of tune out all those other thoughts, all those other negative connotations.
Or replacing the bad with the good, like you said, is like letting go of like the space in your head of all the negativity and allowing yourself to like replace that with like the happy, which again, it's easier said than done, and we completely understand that, but this is literally like steps that you can take as just anybody, and you can truly learn how to take care of your mental. That's really what it boils down to, is like taking care of yourself and acknowledging and giving yourself the space to work through the shit and then filling that with like more positive stuff. And after you do this repetitively, you will become a more positive person, and you will notice that like your stressors probably won't be as high. You know what I mean? So I think that, again, this is all part of just like growing your mind, growing who you are as a person, becoming the best that you can be. And it goes back to the fact that like no matter what has happened to you, like as a child, as a young adult, whatever happened yesterday, you can like, again, acknowledge it and then let it go. Like your dad said, he wasn't wrong when he said that. He wasn't wrong when he said like, you have a minute to like cry about it and then you have to move on. But I think there's a healthy way to do that. And
like, I think there's a line. As long as you aren't just pushing whatever those emotions are and not dealing with them, because that will definitely... that will manifest, that will come back up, and that will come out in different ways. And you don't want to allow that to happen. So healthily dealing, is that even a word? Healthily?
I think so.
Healthily? Dealing with things in a healthy way. Dealing things in a healthy way. It's important to remember that. it's okay to have your time and to keep it moving and to kind of be that I would say stoic, or what my dad says, but to really just be cognizant of your emotions and be cognizant of how it's making you feel and deal with it, and don't allow it to become one of those things that you hold on to that doesn't allow you to make room for others.
Because then it's like, again, the moment that you hold on to it, the moment you internalize it, the moment you push it down, and then you keep living the day to day and you don't address these things, you do make yourself sick. You do make things happen and you don't really realize it. And that's why it's so important, just as an entrepreneur, like, you have to manage your stress in a healthy way.
Right.
And that is just something that's so important. And acknowledging stressors that has happened, like, as a young child or a young adult, or again, even yesterday, and allowing yourself to go through that healing journey, which we're not psychologists. We're not like, we're not preaching things that we don't.
No, we're just people that did what works for us.
Right. And these are things.
And are continuing to try it.
Yes. And again, there's so many resources out there for things like this. There's resources out there for anxiety and depression. There's resources out there for a healing journey. So, like, if you are struggling with these things and some of these things that we're saying are resonating with you, like, there are resources available that you can go to, and you can, like, listen, and you can really take those first steps on your own mental health journey. In order to be a healthy person, obviously physical health is important, but I almost think your mental health is probably more important, because it's your sanity. It's your mind. It's what you fill your day to day with. And this just goes back to, like, the law of attraction, like we talked about in the last one, but what you think about grows. And if you're always consistently focusing on the negative and having that negative self-talk, that's all you're going to see in life. And so it's so important to, like, allow yourself that moment, but then stop those trains of thoughts and fill them with the new and the positive, and to focus on that stuff. And I think, just as, like, a young 20-year-old going through, like, our own healing journeys, and, like, again, not blaming other people for things that have happened in our life, not blaming people for the negativeness that we have, or being conditioned as a child, like,
like, whether it's I just kick Holt smash my mic, but let's, like, thinking about that, not, like, blaming other people, and, like, what does that mean? Because it could be a boyfriend or a girlfriend or your husband, wife, your boss, a coworker. It could be a sibling. No matter what it is, it's reflecting in that situation, and not. It's like, what am I doing? And, like, why am I feeling this way, and assessing the situation so that you can really self-reflect and not just point the finger, because I think that's where a lot of people get lost.
And I think it's about your mental health, and again, how can you grow? Like, sure, like, not everybody's going to be on this path, so you can hold on to, like, so much anger or whatever it may be, but if you focus on, like, your own journey, it's easier to blame sometimes. It's easier to point the finger at somebody else. And especially when you look back at the way that maybe you were conditioned as a child to be so negative, or to think negative, or feed off of the negative energy, or always think the
it's
worst.
What you're seeing, and it's maybe not, it's how you're talking to yourself, but it's how you saw someone talk to someone, or it's how you were talked to. And it's like those things stick in you subconsciously, and that's how you kind of develop, and then you go along,
and then you don't realize, but you're then a 20-year-old operating in that same way, and like, it's almost like, I never wanted to be that, but now I am that, because that's
and I think a lot of people, I don't want to make the mistakes my parents made, right? Okay, well, how do you get around that? That's by self-reflecting on what was actually going on, like the situation, and then, okay, what are the situations that I can do? What are the actions that I can take? Why am I feeling that way about that situation? And it's really how you can start shifting that.
And I think it also, goes back to what we talked about in a couple episodes ago, but not surrounding yourself with those types of people, and, like, allowing yourself to grow, because you're surrounded by people who are also growing and wanting to, like, be better, and maybe aren't so negative, or maybe they lift you up instead of tearing you down kind of thing. Because the people that you do surround yourself with, sometimes your healing journey might not be like,
and not everybody is for everybody, and that's okay. And you don't need to please everyone, and you don't need to make everybody happy. You don't need to be friends with everybody, and it's okay to draw your line in the sand a little bit.
You have to focus on yourself, especially if you are going to go through healing in whatever way or whatever thing that you went through. You have to really focus on yourself, because if you do let people in that are negative or don't like lift you up in that way, it can tear you down so quick. Like it could be such a detrimental thing to your journey, and it's almost like you have to shut out the crowd and you have to be so tunnel vision on your own like healing.
Right.
And once you can get through that, then it's like, okay, I'm good with myself enough that I can open the door for those things to come back if you want to.
Right.
But you do have to shut the shit out.
Right.
You do have to
we cannot heal until we deal.
I love that.
Working on that one just for you.
That's a good one. Okay, I'm here for it.
I want a slow-mo of Jazz's face on that frame.
She's always quick with the witty comments. Like, put that on a t-shirt, which we will be dropping a merch line sometime here in the near future. We'll put that on one. But it's and that's why we want to talk about this today, because it's, if you're an entrepreneur or you're trying to grow, like there's so many different things that you have to go through, and there's so many different processes. There's so many level ups that happen, and like
it never stops.
No, and like that's why like everything that we talk about in this podcast, like it all overlaps a little bit, but it's like the manifesting, the being positive, the letting or overcoming fear, like we've touched on before. It's you go through all of these different phases and like attracting what you want to be. Like you can't do those things unless you do the work first.
Everything goes hand in hand.
Yeah, and you have to do the work to become that person. And if you're trying to grow and you're like moving in a tunnel vision direction, or you have goals, like your mental health is such a big part of like getting you to be that person, or allowing you to progress in a certain way. And that's why it's just so important to like think about these things. And like again, everybody's childhood was so vastly different. And I know there's a lot of people that have had way harder traumas than like we could even imagine.
Oh, yeah.
And there are times where like you can't just deal with it on yourself, like by yourself.
No, I think therapy is great. I think going and seeking that out when you need that, and finding what works best for you is okay. And you should not be ashamed of it, no matter what. I think everybody should probably go to therapy, quite honestly. I don't think it would hurt. So it's don't be scared to embark on that journey, and know that you're worth that time.
Or if we're talking about something, like we're talking about our own personal journeys and things that we've gone through, but if you are somebody who has like seriously struggled with something that is completely out of the realm of what we're talking about, there are times and places where you should take further action on helping yourself heal.
Right.
And those resources are available. And like, that's just something that like, again, we're all on our own path. We're all on our own journey. These are just things that have helped us get through some of the shit that we've been through. And and there's obviously a lot more shit that we've been through, but we just definitely like, it's just learning and growing. It's learning and growing. It's acknowledging what you've been through and like wanting to be better, wanting to be different, like breaking those patterns of like your mental thinking.
Right. It's almost like you have to slow yourself down a little bit to be able to real time. It's like we said, that's where the change happens, right? And then to be able to just slow down, so in the moment you can actually have the thought of, okay, I'm gonna react differently, or I'm gonna react differently, and I'm not gonna allow this to become one of those stressors, to become one of those negative things. I'm going to decide to not talk. I'm going to say something positive to myself versus something negative. I'm like those little things. It's like allowing that quietness. It gives you the chance to be able to do that.
And it gives you a little bit of peace. Like when in my early, like 18 to 20, when I was really kind of going on this like beginning journey of like, I was sick of my own shit. Like I was sick of being negative. I was sick of being that person. And I just really wanted to, like, I was searching for a way to like deal with this stuff. And I think one of my biggest things was like forgiveness, forgiving the people that were in my life for the shit that they had done. And like, that was such a big moment for me, because when that happened, like I literally felt like so much like heaviness was lifted off my own shoulders. And it's like, and it, again, delusional optimist, whatever you want to think it that it is, but like you have to work towards that. And like one of the biggest parts of like my healing journey was just allowing myself to like forgive, because there's a lot of things that happen in your life, and sometimes again you want to blame others, you want to point the finger, and you want to like, it's easier to be angry and to like be closed off. But the moment that you like, again, I was so sick of my own way of thinking and my own shit that I was like, no, I'm done
forgiveness
with this.
too is like you really forgive people for yourself. It's really for you.
Then that's
because
what
if
I
you
felt.
otherwise you will allow that person to hold that space
and take up space. Yeah, take up space
and
in
that
your mind.
emotional investment and that emotional stake in you. You allow them to have that. So it's like by not allowing yourself to forgive or to hold on to, because people will never stop surprising us, and there is something that happens every single day, and life's not a bucket of rainbows. You know, it's really not, and it's what you make it, and finding happiness in those moments and the beauty in every day, but also the beauty in knowing even when you fail or when you don't feel good or when you're having self-doubt or you're feeling limited, the beauty in knowing how to pick yourself up.
Absolutely.
And to keep it going. And it's I'm losing it.
And letting go.
Cut that.
And letting go.
Yes.
We all lose it every day. But in like learning to let go and to just let be, and then forgiving whoever it was in your life, like you said it more. I think because I didn't
not blaming them.
I didn't verbally have this conversation with these individuals. Like it was more so of just me being, again, sick of my own way of thinking because of the thing, like just conditioning and like whatever. And then again, being a young 20-year-old, you don't realize like the things that you're doing, and then you come to a point where you're like, you can't fucking blame everyone for everything. Like you have to take some responsibility.
At some point, there's a line, and it is your responsibility.
As an adult, if I'm acting this way, like, like I need to check myself. And like the moment that I did that and just kind of like
there is room for blame, it only goes so far.
Yeah. And I mean, we can still sit here and be like, yeah. Like,
yeah, I know.
But it's like no. And I think there's more of a beautiful side to the letting go and the healing and like just allowing yourself to like put yourself in that space, which goes back to everything we talked about of like, you only have so much capacity and you only have so much energy to give. And like when you start focusing on your own energy and like what you want versus like what has happened or what could have been, but like staying hyper focused on the beautiful things in life and what you're grateful for and being appreciative and like surrounding yourself with people like you and surrounding yourself with people that's like build you up. There's so much more like better things that are going to come out of your life, and you're going to feel so much better by doing those things versus focusing on the shit or what could have been or all of that. And
so I guess like the best way, because it's easier. It sounds so great.
Yeah.
And it sounds so easy, right? And it sounds so nice listening to it. But I guess it's like, how do you take that and apply it? It's like really, if you're listening, it's like if you're struggling, sit down and take stock of your life. Like, what are the main problems that you're facing that are bothering you, that's upsetting you? Who are the main players in that field? And like, what are you feeling? It's almost kind of like journaling or creating that outline. It's like when you manifest, it's just create an outline of the things that are bothering you, and then create a path on how you can fix each thing. Or it's kind of just like a plan for that, or call to action on how you can
navigate
through. It's like, because if you don't know what's bothering you, if you can't see it and you can't think about things logically, it's like you're gonna be struggling every day. It's gonna be things that wouldn't necessarily bother you are going to bother you, and you're gonna be more irrational, and you're gonna be a little more just flustered, and angry,
anxious and like reactive. And I think that's a good point. And I think that just, again, like I don't want to say don't blame people who have done you wrong or done things like that, but it definitely is like,
I'd say don't blame, learn.
Right. And it's taking, like you said, taking stock of the things that like how am I acting right now? How am I being reactive? Am I being a person that like I didn't think that I would be, or am I acting in a way that like I didn't want to act?
Right.
And again, everybody has bad days. Everybody has a moment. Right. You're allowed to like slip up, and you're allowed to not be this optimistic, perfect person. Like that's not
Some
realistic.
Days are hard.
But it's also how you go through that after you do slip up, because the faster that you can get back to being the person that you want to be versus then slipping down the hole of being like the old you or diverting to your old ways,
the faster you get to being the person you want to be.
And that's growth. That is growth. Like we all have moments, like even the most perfect people that could be out there have their moments. But again, you snap back into that person. You allow yourself that moment to mess up. You reflect from that, and then you move on. But like you said, taking just stock of like, how am I acting? How am I, like, am I reacting? Am I being the person that I want to be? Maybe you need to cut people out of your life. And we talked about that previously too. Maybe there's things that you need to take out of your life. Maybe
lifestyle changes.
Maybe you've been drinking too much. Maybe you've been sleeping in. Maybe you've been filling your mind with all this shit. And maybe you need to replace that with like more healthier habits or healthier people. And again, it's just all about mental health and mental awareness in general. There's so many little things that you can do. But if you are filling your time with booze or drugs or
people,
if you're filling your mind with people that are so detrimental to your own well-being, I think it's good to recognize that. And then
it helps you hone in on the areas. It's like, it's kind of like, how do I even get started? That's how you get started. If you don't know these points or where there even are points to start, how do you move forward? So doing that allows you that space, or that at least that, I want to say, what is it? I don't know the word I'm looking for, but having that clear mind to be like, okay, this is at least where I can look. And this is maybe something I can improve. And maybe here's just one thing that I can start with. That's not, you can't change your life overnight.
No.
You cannot fix all your problems or listen to a podcast. It's not fairy godmothers up in here.
No.
You have to do the work, and you have to be able to recognize what's going on in your own life and being able to fix that. And it does take time, and it's maybe starting with just that one tiny improvement that you can make, and then starting with the next one.
Absolutely.
And then so on and so forth.
I think that's just so important. It is about just the small steps each day. And like, again, who do you want to be, and how are you right now? Like, just looking at like yourself. Like, again, for me, I was sick of my own shit. So like, that was one facet that like kickstarted like the journey. Like, if you are reactive, if you are just like, crawling in your skin, if you're having bad days 99% of the time, like, maybe it's time to take a moment and like look at and reflect, who are you surrounding yourself with? What kind of self-talk are you telling you? Like, what are the things, the narration inside your head? Are you being negative with yourself? Are you being hard on yourself? When you look in the mirror, are you like, oh, I'm freaking ugly, like, I don't like this and I don't like that and I don't like this? Like, how are you acting within your own mind? And then just, again, changing those little things each day. And the only way to really do that is to replace bad habits with the new. And that's up to you on how you want to do that. If you like, then the best way for us has been to listen to people that are positive and surround ourselves with positive, and unfortunately cut out unhealthy relationships in our life. And like putting your foot down in those areas, forgiving people who have hurt you, and really just taking responsibility for your own mind, which is, I think, maybe more so where that comes into, like, not blaming other people for your own thinking, because you are in control of your own thoughts.
They're not responsible for you. I think that's what people need to remember, is that even if it's your parents, it's like everybody's on their own journey. And just because you are in their journey or are a part of their journey does not mean you are their whole journey. And so it's like, and that's for each person, and that can go in different ways. But I think like once you can kind of realize that, and then we're doing the best that we can, and we're trying to use the tools that we have, and we're kind of trying to figure it out. The more you can realize that, the easier it gets, just a little bit.
Yes. And how many times have we talked about, like, we've had this conversation so many times, and it goes back to like not having expectations, especially for people that like you do hold people to, like, sometimes. And
I don't think it's bad. I'm not like not having expectations. Like, I think it's good to hold people accountable.
Yes.
And to have like a responsibility within like a relationship, but to definitely not have unrealistic expectations on people.
I think that's
so
or
important. Yourself.
Yeah, because then it's almost like you're feeding yourself a false narrative. For one, you're gonna be let down. For two, and then it just goes back to, like you said, like, you can only blame somebody so much who was only conditioned so much in their own life. So like thinking too, whether it's a parent or like a close friend or whatever it may be, but if somebody is acting a certain way and it's like the way that they are, like, you can only blame them so much, because they have been conditioned to what they are and how they have become the person that they are, because they watched somebody else act.
They don't have the tools. It's like they don't have the tools to know how to. They're using what they have. They're using the best tools and the knowledge that they have and what they've grown up with and what they've been exposed to, that's what they have. And so it's like once you do have that patience with people too, it does create more of a different conversation.
And I think the more that you take care of yourself, the more that you grow personally, then you can kind of acknowledge those things, and then you just don't they don't harm you as much as they would if you were in a mental state of being negative about yourself or the way you feel or having these high expectations and things. You know what I mean? The more that you heal yourself, the more you can kind of have empathy for other people and see that, again, everybody's on their own journey. We're all on our own path, like you just said. So it puts you in a healthier position to kind of deal with those type of people in your life.
Right.
And I think it's a very healthy way to go about it because, again, you can take care of your own mental. You don't have control over anybody else. And that's just the way that it is. And the more that you can grow, and it's almost like as you grow in your own journey, you have more empathy for others because you have been allowing yourself to be empathetic with yourself.
Right.
It's like if you have come from a place of negative self-talk, the more you become more empathetic with yourself when you go through this growth journey.
Right.
You allow yourself to feel, you allow yourself to reflect, you allow yourself to think more positively.
It's like having a relationship with yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you were going to be with somebody, you wouldn't want them to be mean to you and talk badly out to you all the time and say, wow, you're really ugly. You know what? You wouldn't. Why?
Right.
You wouldn't do that?
But we do it to ourselves.
And if you are, you need to stop.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and that just goes back to too, you can only love so much if you only love yourself so much. And that's just so true because it's the more that you do the work within, you see these things in other people.
And you're allowed to give that to other people because you can't give it if you don't have that tool.
Right. And
wow. Things are just tying all together here. We're like a shoes up in here.
Oh my gosh. And it's just so true. I just realized I left my lips. Oh my gosh. But it is. It's so true though. And it's the more that you can grow within yourself and allow yourself to forgive and allow yourself to open up to new things and be more optimistic. That you and it's what you think about grows or what you you attract these things more into your life or it gives you the space and the energy that you might not have had otherwise for other people, and you can feel the empathy for other people, and that's also maybe why you can help more people because you've gone through it kind of thing.
Right.
So it's a very important process.
Amen, sister. So if you're definitely someone that's listening, watching, you're that's I kind of fall into this category a little bit, which I definitely I don't want anybody lying to themselves. I think we all definitely fall into this category. I think everybody struggles, and anyone that tries to portray to you that everything is perfect in their life and everything is amazing, those are probably the people that you might want to spend a little more extra time with because it's in reality, it's everybody's going through something. And how would you suggest to somebody that is in that category, that is I feel that same way? How would you suggest to them, how do I get started with overcoming that self-doubt and not limiting myself? And what are some things that I can do?
Yeah. And we always want to, like you said, having the tools, the right tools, right? And
right. I think because it sounds easier said than done.
And we can't stress that enough. We go through shit every day. Everybody goes through shit. Right. But it's how you can mentally process things enough to where you are still in a healthy mental space. And and there's just always going to be things that happen that are out of your control. But I think a few things that you could do is obviously start trying to have positive self-talk. Think about the things, if you are negative like I was, I just hit my microphone. If you are negative like I was and you were so strung on I am not worthy, I need to prove myself, I'm going to show everybody up, I'm going to prove everybody wrong, looking in the mirror and truly being so unhappy with the way that your face looks because of acne or whatever it was. And this goes into a whole nother conversation, but I think that my acne was a manifestation of my thoughts, because the moment that I went through my healing journey with my own self was the moment that when my positive self-talk came in, and when I was really purposely focusing on these things, my acne just went away. It was this thing that just happened. And I truly believe
interesting
these things physically manifest themselves. And that just goes into a whole nother thing. But I truly believe that. And so practicing positive self-talk. And again, there's so many resources out there that you can pick up on positive self-talk, but it's just as simple as replacing a bad thought with a good thought. And again, you might have to trick yourself the first few times or first 100 times because you are so conditioned to the negativeness. But looking in the mirror and saying, you know what? I am beautiful. Like, I have beautiful skin. And I said that to myself when I did not have beautiful skin.
When you didn't believe that about yourself.
No, and it's a crazy process. But again, you're replacing bad habits with new. And
it's compounded over time. Things do change.
And you believe it. And then you just become more positive. And then you can just keep adding on to that. But I think positive self-talk for people who are in a negative space is one way that you can truly help kind of get past that. And then that goes into let going of the limiting beliefs. So like, I'll never have this because I didn't go to college, or I'm never going to do this because I had a horrible childhood, or I'm never going to do that because he or she has everything already in place. Like, the more that you have these beliefs, and then again, I say then again a lot. We talk about this a lot. We talked about this a lot in the last podcast, but when you have an emotion behind these beliefs, you manifest more of that into your life. So the more that you can limit those negative beliefs in your life and not have that emotion, it's going to help you get past this negative way of thinking.
And a big way to do that is like you need to surround people that are beneficial to your mental health and the life that you want to create. And I know that goes into like surrounding yourself with the 5 people that, you know, you are who you are. Surround yourself with, and you're a product of the 5 people that you're always around. So it's really taking stock, and maybe sitting down is when you do that. It's like reflect on those things. And what are some things that are in my life that could be causing me stress or causing me pain or strife that aren't allowing me to be able to move in the direction that I want to go in.
Yeah, and I think a good example of that is like if you have somebody in your life who, and we all have these like sarcastic friends, but like, oh, you could never do that, or like, oh, if you tell somebody how like something you want to do, like they make it a joke, or they turn it into something that's like, or like those are people that they don't even realize what they're doing, but those people have their own negative self-beliefs and their own negative self-talk, and they project that onto you. So yes, surrounding yourself with people who are more positive and like lift you up. Like you want to go be an astronaut, like you can do that. Like, how do you do that? Like being so engaged with like who you want to be and what you want to do, and being supportive. Like we're all, again, on our own journey, and the more supportive that you can be for the people around you, it's going to make you so much happier versus having those people. And sometimes those people are parents or aunt and uncles or cousins or brothers and sisters. Like sometimes those people are the people that you are closest with, and that's like one of the hardest things. But just reflecting on that and being like, okay, well, and it's hard to say to like cut out family, but if you are trying to do something with your life, limiting your time or limiting what you say to them to allow them to take that from you, I think that's super important.
I think it's fine. I mean, I wouldn't say I mean, like, if you need to do what you need to do, and there are people in your life that are negative or cutting you down or like unsupportive or are, it's okay to create a space or a boundary. Like that's completely okay. It's okay to be able to draw a line and say, you know what, that's okay, and you can have that opinion, but you're gonna be over here. And you can't let that deter you. You know what I mean?
No,
it's like cutting people out, but like you're allowed to create that boundary and like knowing that is okay. And that can be really hard to do. I know.
It is, and that's why I was hesitant, because I'm like, I know it's hard to say that and it's a little harsh, but it is true. And if they are detrimental to your growth, then you need to think about who those people are and how you can set those boundaries for sure. And that also goes into letting go of what people think of you. That's like one of the biggest things, especially for myself. Like I used to care so much, and not to say I don't care now, because it is probably something I still struggle with. Like I don't like to go to the store looking like a mess or anything like that. Like
I know.
I'm very like, I like to be put together. Like I'm not like, this is just the way that I am. But I'm better than I was, and I keep growing in that way. And then like I used to be so bad and so concerned with how people thought of me,
right,
that it was detrimental to my own mental health. And I think that that's one of the biggest things, that you can't grow if you're always focused on what everybody else is thinking. And quite frankly, if they do think about it, it's for probably 1 second, and you're stewing on it for like 5 days. And it's
who
like,
the hell cares?
you're like why?
Like, seriously.
Right. And if the right people are going to support you and be around you.
Right.
And
if they're not going to be in your life for the next 5 years,
what is it?
Why give them the next 5 minutes?
Right. I know. I'm with you on that.
See ya. Like, bye.
I'm with you.
And then if they are, and it is a parent or it is a family member, or in those kinds of situations, it's creating that boundary. And what does that look like? And then maybe having that discussion or sit down. And maybe that's not always a possibility. But if you can't have that conversation with them, it's being like, this is how you're making me feel. And how do we better communicate, and how can we come to an understanding? Or it's like knowing how to create that boundary with yourself so you don't lose your progress and lose that excitement, I guess it is.
It's all about your own journey and your own path, and
Right.
like, how are you going to better your mental health? And there's so many different ways that you can do that. I think too, and we talked about this a few minutes ago, but writing down your goals, writing down who you want to be, and then just like very honestly reflecting on like, how are you acting now? How are you reacting? If you are reacting, are you becoming that person? Just writing down a whole list of things about yourself and doing the comparison of like, this is the person that I want to be. This is where I'm at right now. And again, you have to be honest with yourself and just making sure that you are matching who you want to be with that person. How would that person act? How would that person react? What kind of things do they tell themselves? What kind of negative beliefs that I tell myself do I need to let go of? And just writing this stuff down. And we touched on this on the last episode on manifesting. It is so important, and it can seriously help you, especially like get out of a rut when it comes to anxiety or depression.
Right.
And then I know we touched on this as well, but filling your mind with the positivity and listening to podcasts or resources that are positive thinking, and like just filling your mind with more.
A positive outlet. Find something that works for you, whether it's a podcast or a TV show or a book
YouTube
or
videos.
whatever it is. It's find something that works for you that is a positive outlet to bring you that, to connect you with that direction that you're trying to go with.
And again, you want to replace the negative gunk that's filling up your mind with positive stuff. So that's why we would recommend that, is like just consistently filling your mind with other things, reading books or listening or like whatever you said, just doing something that is replacing the shit and the negative thoughts that are in your head with more positive thoughts or a positive way of thinking. That's something that honestly has probably helped us so much more than we think, is instead of focusing on the negative or just always filling our mind with positive stuff. And I think that can help somebody so much. Okay, and then lastly, going all in on yourself. Like, don't look back. Stay focused on your goal.
Right. Be consistent.
Be consistent.
And have patience.
Have patience.
It's true.
I know, it's just one of the threads of each show, but it's like being consistent, have that tunnel vision, focus on what you want so hardcore, and know that if you do the work, you're going to get where you want to be. And that's why we wanted to talk about mental health today, and just overcoming these limiting beliefs and how to let go of self-doubt, because especially as an entrepreneur, doing these steps can help you so much, more than you even think. You can be pushing, and it's just the moment that you could fall apart so quickly. But if you have these tools and you have these resources and you are staying consistent and you are staying focused and you have that tunnel vision,
and you check in with yourself too.
Yeah, it's all going to work out. It's going to work out, and in a better way than it would if you didn't have resources like this, or if you weren't staying focused on those things.
Right.
And it's, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you are alone a lot of the times, and in order to stay sane with your own self, like doing the work and focusing on all the good and letting go of the negative self-talk, all of those things that we've touched on is just so important. But I think then that's just the biggest thing, is why we want to talk about this today, is because there's, as an entrepreneur, again,
every day's hard.
It's
ebbs and flows. And
there is high stress situations. You are building a business. You are putting yourself out there. There's just so many things that could like wear you down, where you need to have the resources and the outlets to help build you up.
Right.
And that's just so important. And it's something that we're super passionate about. And we definitely want to, again, bring as much value and impact as we can with this podcast. And I know you said, you're like, this is a negative topic today, but I'm hoping that we turned it into something a little bit more light and positive, because there are these are things that we've struggled with personally. You know what I mean? And we're hoping that our story can shine a little bit of light. Like if there was just one thing that we said that resonated with one person, we're doing our job.
Absolutely.
So, and then we also want to just kind of take a second to say that if you are struggling, there's so many different resources out there. We'll drop a few in the description below. But Mel Robbins is probably one of the awesomest. She's super trendy right now. We've been listening to her for a while before she's been super trendy.
Right.
But she's one that can really help you overcome these things and kind of give you some more tools in your tool belt. And then Tony Robbins. I don't know if they're related or not. But those are both really, if you're looking for something and you're like, well, I don't know where to start, or I don't know what podcast to listen to or whatever, do some search on Mel Robbins and Tony Robbins.
And Jay Shetty too.
And Jay Shetty. There's a lot. And again, finding what works for you or what vibe you like. There's so many different.
I also really like Diary of a CEO.
He's really good too.
It's a very good one.
Yep. So there's a lot of really great podcasts and outlets that you can start filling your mind with more positive stuff. And we hope that you guys will take the time to do that. So
we appreciate you guys so much for joining us. I know that this is a topic that everybody struggles with, and we can go on and on and on. But we just, if like Jazz said, if we can help one person, then we made a difference.
Yeah.
And if there's anything, we want to know how you guys deal with your stress and what are some different things that you do, and let us know, because we're always looking for.
Yeah, we're open. We're always down to try new things, and if there's or somebody that you listen to, leave it in the comments below. It could definitely help somebody else. And also, just to wrap this up too, as a little disclaimer, we know there are people out there that are struggling with a lot more stuff than we even took a dabble into, and we don't want to be lighthearted on those things. So if there's something super traumatic that you have gone through, these tools that we have talked about might not be the best for you at this time. And we definitely, if you are struggling with mental health and you're in a deep, dark place, there are resources, there are psychologists, there's people that you can reach out to, and we highly recommend going through that process.
Online and in person.
Yes. Yep. So definitely take that step, and just whatever is right for you in this moment is what we wish for and what we hope for. So definitely do what you need to for your own mental health.
You are worth it, and you are loved.
And you are worthy, and you are beautiful, and you are strong.
Look at her go. She's waving, baby.
All of the things. I love her.
I knew. I know.
Oh, yes. So that's kind of how we're going to wrap it up today. But definitely feel free to leave some comments below on anything. If we said something that resonated with you, we would love to know. If something that absolutely did not resonate with you, we would like to know that too.
Just let us know what you think. Let us know all the thoughts.
Yeah. And if you guys have any topics that you would like us to either go further into, or something that you would really like us to shine more light on, either as an entrepreneur, as in life, or whatever it may be, also let us know, because we're always down to do that. And if there's anything that you guys would like us to shine a little bit more light on, or a topic that we covered that you would want to hear a little bit more on, we would love to hear that from you, and we will definitely take a deep dive into that. So thank you guys.
Share, subscribe, please. We love you guys.
Yes,
we appreciate your support.
Always appreciate the support. And we will drop all the links in the description below. And we just appreciate you being here with us today. And we wish you guys all the most amazing mental health.
Yes.
And we will see you next time.
See you next week.
Bye.
Peace.